Okay, so yeah, but this brings me to next question I have here. I mean, I want to create a discussion here because we three of us know that Japanese students usually study 6 to 10 years in a school, studying English for 6 to 10 years, if I'm not wrong, and also they go to Eikaiwas and they go to cram school, and most of them cannot speak the basic conversation in English. And I just want to see what's your take on this, because we live there and we experience that. I want to know what is the main reason that most of them cannot hold a basic conversation.
I would say that it is mostly due to just not having enough opportunities to use the English language. Like, there's really is no reason to ever use English, because for a lot of Japanese individuals, they're only ever going to use Japanese for reading, for speaking, for writing, for texting, for typing. A lot of them, yeah, they do learn English from elementary school all the way into college. But then afterwards, they enter the workforce, at which point they only ever use English. They only ever use Japanese. And then once, they are working until they eventually, either uh, quit or get married or retire or whatever, and eventually spend the rest of their lives maybe, traveling around Japan or whatever. But yeah, there really is zero incentive to use Japanese. I mean, to use anything other than Japanese. Like, say, in America, you have so many communities, you have from so many different backgrounds, and various different locales where certain languages are more common than others, or you have individuals who love to travel to other places. Learning a second language is certainly very beneficial and oftentimes necessary, in order to make certain connections with people. Whereas in Japan, it's because like 99, like, this is probably not accurate, but like 99.9% of the population is Japanese. There's just no reason to use anything other than the Japanese language. And it's a pattern I've seen with all my students. I would always ask whenever I'd ask my adult students, the first lesson, or our first lesson, I would always ask them one of two questions. One is, what is your experience with English? And why do you want to learn English? And these are, for them, they always react as if these are like profound questions. Like, they've never had to stop and think, why do I want to learn English? But that's a thing I like. I like to open their minds up and say, hey, why do we do the things that we do? Be a little more introspective, and trying to do that from a English language is, I think, really good practice for them. But anyways, I would always ask them, what's your experience with English? And for most of them, it's the same old story. I studied it in school, and then I stopped using it once I graduated. And that seems to be the case with all of my students, regardless of their background, or, where they came from or how old they are. Once they are finished studying, that's just it. It's, in a way, it's a lot like students who took Spanish or French in high school in America. They just, and then never bothered with it ever again. And in the case of, like, why do they want to learn English? That is usually, like, again, either they want to, pick up a new, pick up a new hobby, or they want to start traveling outside Japan, or they're just looking for something interesting to do, or they're looking for a promotion at work, which is, I want to say, at least like half of the students I had who have like a white collar job. A lot of students of mine were using that specifically to get ahead in their careers.
Right? Yeah, I mostly agree with you here. I have some points that I will add later, but I would like to hear what JD thinks about this.
Yeah, I think on this pretty much summarized it right from the beginning of his example. But I think it's, yeah, they haven't been, so language is a tool, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
they haven't you might, I mean, you could say that you use tools to solve problems, right? They haven't encountered a problem that requires them to use the language. Like Andres was saying, they don't even know why they want to even study it half the time, or the reasons are those reasons are not going to like get them to fluency. Just being real here. It's not until you come across something, like it's kind of like, let me use an easier example. Like if you're trying to, if you've always wanted to build a gaming PC,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That's like sounds really cool when you think about it and everything, but then like try to build it, like try
Mhm.
try to buy the parts and don't ask anybody for help.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like how long are you going to get stuck on knowing which motherboard, which GPU? It's not, I'm not trying to make it seem like it's like that hard. But I'm just trying to kind of create like a scenario where you really do encounter a problem that you have to try to solve, and then
Mhm.
these are the things that start to come into your mind, like, oh man, what do I do here? Like,
Yeah.
and you have to take each step by step, right? So like, and then let's say you figure out everything you need to buy, then you get everything, and you're like, oh, whoa, what is that? Like the motherboard, the first time you see it, the GPU, how do I stick that on there? Like, how do I organize everything in the case, right? Like how, once you actually are put in a situation where you have to, it doesn't have to be this, it could be literally anything, fixing a car or whatever, right? Everything seems like, um, it's not gonna force you to actually learn how to do something until you have the problem in your face. And then it's gonna be about whether or not you want to be the one to solve that problem. So, English, well, I like the show Friends or whatever, right? And then
Mhm.
you understand like the show because you've been watching it with Japanese subtitles, and then you take them off, and then you're like, oh man, a lot of people are gonna stop right there. They're gonna be like, nope, I have to go back and like study textbooks again. I'm not good enough to do it without the subtitles. When in fact, that's where you have to start. Removing the subtitles and trying to understand every single word that the person is saying. That's actually where you start. It's
Yeah.
the same with Japanese. So if you're trying to watch anime without subtitles, does that mean that you have to go past N1 first? Absolutely not. You're probably still not going to understand anime without subtitles. If you pass N1, you probably won't even understand 30% of it. The way that you get good at watching anime without subtitles is to take the subtitles off and try to understand the anime. And then that's when you start to realize, like, oh, okay, you start to think about solutions to your problem. And yeah, oftentimes it is word by word. It is just trying to catch every single thing they're saying. And it is like, okay, what do these things mean? And it sounds like crazy, I guess. What do you mean word? What do you mean eat word for word? Well, that's kind of how you do it, line by line. If it's a manga, if it's a video game. So I don't think they put themselves in situations where this happens. Um, and there's Japanese people who didn't go this extreme and they still like get pretty decent at English, I'm sure. But I think they did. I think they did. I think those Japanese people who that we did encounter that were really good at English, they did go above and beyond by doing this. They did really want to solve their problem of like, I don't understand this. How do I understand it? But that's through my experiences. That's what I've come to find.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you guys here, but we didn't actually talk about the system here. I think I'm gonna go a little bit against what you guys said. I agree with you 90% almost, yeah. But I think there's a there are also big issues regarding um, the the mindset maybe or the system, educational system that they tell students you have to study English just for the entrance exams, for example, and all the education books and systems in Japan are not focusing on speaking. So I think 90% of 90% of educated people in Japan are very good at grammars, English grammar. So probably better than me and some people. Not better than you guys, but but I think Japanese system prioritizing the test scores over the like fluency in speaking the language or something like that. I think that's what I saw and I know about the Japanese education system. And I think Also, there's another thing that I want to talk about here. It might actually not be very pleasing to hear, but I think most of the English teachers at university, Japanese English teachers, are not good at English speaking, or not. They are not good at English themselves, and they are educators. They are trying to teach. I'm looking at this as an educator standpoint. If I'm not good at something, I'm trying not to focus on that when I'm teaching. Okay, so because I don't want to make mistakes, I don't want to be laughed at. I don't want people to think I'm weak or I'm making a lot of mistakes, right? So if I'm not good at speaking myself, I'm not going to focus too much on the speaking part or pronunciation part, right? Let's focus on something that I'm good at, which is grammar, right? So I think most of not all of them, some of the teachers that I have encountered, because at our university also we had English teacher teaching education, and some other universities that I know, most of the students are graduating from those universities. Actually, they study to become an English teacher, and they are not good at English themselves. Like they barely pass. And guess what? Those teachers become English teachers at elementary schools and high school, and then they are, this is what they call, this is cycle. And
Oh yeah. Like a self-repeating cycle.
yeah, yes. So then it's gonna repeat itself, and the next generation would become like the same, and it keeps going this way, right? I think this is my point of view, seeing this from an educator point of view. But I think that's one of the problems I see about teaching education in Japan. And also, I think another problem is that Japanese people tend to be afraid, or what they call fear of mistakes in Japan, right? So most of the Japanese students are actually good at English, but they are afraid to be laughed at or being bullied or something, and they never actually speak up. They don't show how good they are at English, and they silence themselves, and because they're afraid to make mistakes and be laughed at. I think this is what I know from. I've heard this one from so many of people that I know, and of course, as students as well. And I say, "Wow, your English is really good, but you never talked in English. Why?" And they explain why, because they don't want to talk in front of many people or many Japanese. And this is actually really interesting because um, I know Japanese people always speak good English, but I never heard them speaking to me in English or other people in English. And when they are with friends or the community they are hanging out with, that was very interesting to see for me. And I think also, mm, I think new generation at least a little bit better because they've been influenced a little bit by maybe Korean culture that I don't know, K-pop singers, for example, they speak very good English, most of them. And I think young generation is also more exposed to social media and English media and something like that. Maybe they are much better compared to the older generation. But in overall, I think, as you said, guys, they don't need to learn the English, but I think they need to at this era because uh, if you want to do business out of Japan, you need to know English, right? I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
I think one of the I'm not talking politic here, but I think Japan needs to actually have more international relationship and sell their products internationally. And for example, in Europe, I don't see that much in Japanese products. Okay, a lot of Korean products, a lot of Chinese products. And when I think about it, I think maybe the reason would be that Japanese are afraid to communicate with foreigners to sell their products to, or they do business with them because they don't want to also make mistakes, or they want to,
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, this is what I'm thinking. I don't know if it's actually right, but why there are less Japanese product in Europe compared to, Korean and Chinese. So I've been to so many places, to many conferences, many other places. I see the people who are coming from Korea and China, they speak very good English when they do presentations. On the other hand, some of the professors coming from Japan, they are not very fluent at speaking, presenting their articles, right? And that's kind of sad to see because you're a professor, you had time at least to learn this language. You knew that you're going to be professor presenting your ideas. And that's the problem. Most of the ideas, great ideas in Japan, die in Japan or never out of Japan because they were not able to verbalize it, you know?
I think this stems from a cultural issue in Japan, that being the fear of failure. Well, one of the big things I teach my students is failure is one of the best tools you can use to learn in order to learn to improve. Like you need failure in order to learn from without mistakes. There is nothing to learn from. You can learn from your mistakes, learn what you got wrong, so that you can improve upon that the next time. But I think it might be a cultural issue where it's like they're so afraid of failure that they're so embarrassed from failure that they don't, or the mere thought of failure that they don't want to even try to begin with. So it's like, sure, they've managed to, in some cases, make international connections with certain countries, but maybe they're too afraid in certain cases with certain companies, with certain markets in certain countries. They're too afraid to make those new connections because they don't know how to go about it, and they don't want to try because, like I said, they're afraid of failure. Another thing could be that, Japan, to me, it always felt like Japan lives in this very isolated bubble of theirs, this little bubble that is Japan, that where they're isolated from the rest of the world, in a very self-contained island series of islands, and they feel like they're too afraid to go outside that safe little bubble, because again, of fear of the unknown. And yeah, maybe it's a combination of those factors where it's like, the whole sort of like fear of what is out there beyond what I'm already comfortable with. The idea of like, I'd rather stay here because it's what I'm most familiar with, it's what I'm most comfortable with, and I don't want to go outside of that because I don't know what's out there and I don't know if I'm even going to succeed, so I'm not even going to try. That said, I definitely remember that in certain cases, some of my students who have gone to international concerts, they would take with them audio recorders, and they'll record certain presentations from certain people, bring it back to class, and then together we would listen to those conversations where I would help my students transcribe what is being said in the recording. And interestingly, there was one individual from a presenter from America, had a bit of a southern drawl to his voice, so I could tell what kind of dialect he was using from America. And he was making jokes. He was making wisecracks every so often, and the audience was laughing. My student did not know why they were laughing, so I was explaining the jokes to him, and he's like, "Oh, now I get it," because he had such up to that point, he had very little experience with just how casual and jokey certain presenters were, that he was kind of like caught off guard. It was like, oh, is this how they go about things? And he was just not used to that. So I was explaining everything to him. He's like, okay, now I understand what is being said, thanks to you, Andres. And so yeah, it's like they like, I don't know, just using him as an example, that it's possible that there are other businessmen like him who go to these international conferences, and because they have a lack of experience in terms of English proficiency, English comprehension, that they fail to make those connections because they're struggling to even understand native speakers when they speak at native speed.
Yeah, just add something here. I think I have an example to give you here, that I know someone that she's good at English, but she's afraid to show that she's good at English. Because I think there is a culture that it's not good to stand out or show off how good.
Oh yeah,
like
don't rock the boat.
So it reminds me of the Scandinavian rule is janteloven, or is law of Janten, I think. So it has this thing. Don't try to stand out and be better than others, or don't show, don't compare yourself with others and try to be better than others. Something like that, if I'm not mistaken, exact verse of that law. But the Japanese have this tendency to lower themselves and what they call it, be humble and not show off, and that also damages their feeling, because they studied this whole life and they're good at it, but they cannot present themselves in front of Japanese people because they look at it and say, "Are you showing off to us? Why are you trying to speak English, right? In this community or in this channel or in this podcast, for example, right? Are you trying to show off you are good at English?" And this is what I heard so many times already. I have seen comments below some people's videos, and that's not really good to tell people like that. And you just discourage them of becoming better at that language or anything they do. I'm not generalizing. Some people do that, and I think it is kind of a culture not to stand out.
Right. There's those that, and that ends up leading to that lack of the drive to go above and beyond.
Yeah.
That was something I always prided myself in terms of my lessons to motivate my students to do what their heart is set on doing. It's like, if you enjoy painting, go out and paint the best picture you think you can make. You want to, do something, you have a hobby, that is awesome. Keep doing that hobby. You want to travel to this location, go out and do that. Do whatever your heart is set on, and go do it and enjoy it the most out of it. Be true to yourself. Don't listen. Those were actually my parting words with all of my students when I left. It's like, don't concern yourself with what he's saying or what she's saying or what they say. Just focus on yourself. Just make.
Sorry, I should stop you here because I think it's very, very difficult to change.
Oh, it is absolutely
culture, but I found this fascinating. This is really actually true. I mean, fascinating. When these Japanese people leave Japan and come out, they show the true themselves, and that's amazing.
Oh yeah.
When they become
for sure.
And I know this as an experience that most Japanese actually leave Japan and come living abroad. They feel more relaxed and easygoing, and they're not stressed as much because they can be themselves. They can They can dress however they want. They can speak the way they want it, and never been criticized or been looked at as, "Oh, why are you speaking like that?" Or So I don't know. We can ask JD. Do you have any thoughts on that as well? Because me and Andres been talking. Andres been speaking.
I do want to say you're absolutely right, and in most cases that most Japanese people won't be able to overcome that because it's so ingrained in their day-to-day lives. I'm just saying that I wanted to, if I'm going to make at least some amount of impact, hopefully them seeing me live, or seeing me live by example, to take a page out, seeing, like, I started out writing my own comics while I was living in Japan, and to them, they had never even seen anyone do such a thing before, especially on an indie level like myself. But they saw it's like, hey, I got a story. I'm going to invest money in telling that story and sharing it with the world. And so I always took that live by example approach to say, hey, if an average guy like me can do it, anyone can do it. So it's like, again, realistically, maybe it wouldn't leave an impact, but it doesn't mean that it's not worth at least trying. To try to leave some kind of impact, just to give them something to think about.
I should tell you that. Oh, sorry, I cut you off here.
No.
I can tell you that actually I had impacts on some people during my lifetime, just telling them what I thought is the right thing to do, and they achieved what they wanted, and they always appreciated it. And I'm very happy with that. You're right here. You have to try as much as you can.
To
tell them the right thing, the right way to do things, right?
Right. And of course, it's like, we're teachers at the end of the day. We're not life coaches.
Exactly.
But still, it doesn't hurt to get some positive reinforcement. That's another thing I feel like Japanese culture lacks, the sort of like good job. Like they're told to do a thing and they do the thing, and if they do it well, they'll get
Give the thumbs up.
Yeah, a thumbs up. But it's like they need more than that to continue, moving forward. So it's like, as a teacher, I always want to give my students the positive reinforcement they need, saying, "Yeah, that's it. Good job. Keep going." So I feel like, in a way, trying to show them, like trying to help them be the best that they can be, plays into our role as teachers, in terms of just like going above and beyond with certain students, especially the students who we can tell that are really wanting to give it their all. So it's like, I wouldn't see it as like going outside the peripherals of what a teacher should do. I feel like the whole self-improvement plays a big role in the education process.
Weird. Yeah. So I was hoping JD says something here, but
I was gonna say that I think what's ironic about the Andres telling his students, like, "Oh, like I'm just like an average person, and look what like if I could do it, anyone can do it." They probably do not view him as an average person. I'm almost positive that they're like, "What is he talking about?" Like yeah, I think they're just, they're not gonna a lot of them lack the confidence / they never really thought about concepts like that to begin with. Or if someone is like saying something like that, or giving that sort of advice, they're probably like, I don't know if you're just like a random person here. But yeah, I was gonna I was also thinking of making the point that Messi made when I actually saw this multiple times when I was on ALT. There were students that were actually pretty good at English. They could actually already communicate because they taught themselves, and they were like 15 years old. And they refused. I mean, they actually didn't. They didn't let it get them down, but the rest of the class would actually like kind of bully them a little bit, or like make fun of them a little bit, because their English is so good. In comparison to everyone else. Like every time that he would come up for because they had a bunch of different home assignments, and one of them would be to go in front of the class and say something in English, give a speech or presentation or whatever, or just say any sentences. Anytime that he would do anything, they would everyone would start to like clap their hands for no reason. They were just obviously like trying to say like, "Oh, it's the guy who's like really good at English." And he wouldn't let it get to him. Like he would keep going and he would keep smiling. So he was like a really positive like person. But yeah, that mindset, not only with this just one example or a couple examples, but that mindset I've seen it throughout Japan. As Messi was saying, that, or actually both of you guys made this point. That it's a mindset issue. Like they see if you get too good at English, that actually takes away from your Japanese-ness. You're like less Japanese because your English is getting too good. We actually see that. I saw that in my own culture. The better I got at English, the more I was shunned as a. I experienced this because I was like I went to the elementary schools in the South. I'm gonna try not to get off the topic. I'm just like kind of relating. It's common in Mexican culture and Japanese culture. I think there's a lot of similarities in general, but I think this is one of those similarities where the more I spoke English and got better at it, the more the other Mexican Americans who weren't as good at it or weren't as confident, that the more they had a problem with it. And so I completely understood like when that would happen in Japan, I was like, it's this again. And yeah, people are really prideful. Japanese are really prideful of being Japanese. And yeah, they don't want to go against that, right? So it's like a mindset issue from like many different like aspects, right? So Yeah, but I think that's a big one. I think there's no point in getting good at English anyway because I'm Japanese and I should just be Japanese. And that's actually a lot of even if you, just one small little point, even if you go like on Instagram or whatever, and I've gotten so many countless times, like Japanese people have gone into the chat when I make a comment on something linguistically. It's like a linguistics based channel, and they'll say, "Of course, that person can speak Japanese. She's Japanese." And it's like, well, the person was born in America, right? But like that's the mindset, is that it just because they're Japanese, like that's like the all encompassing like that's the only thing that matters, and because you're Japanese you can do everything a Japanese person can do, kind of thing. It's like really strong, right? It's a really 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 strong cultural identity that I think prevents them from learning other languages.
Yep, I agree with that as well. Yeah. So, anything to add on this here? Or?
Let's see. So we were talking about the system before.
Mhm.
What was it? Just not only the fact that there's no reason to use English earlier before, but also the fact that there's just a self-repeating cycle, that people who don't speak English end up becoming the very same people who teach English in the first place. And I remember there was a point I wanted to make earlier, but I totally forgot what it was. Oh no, now I remember. It was the fact that I always thought they had a very weird way, a very backwards way of approaching English education in Japan. I remember early on, I realized, like, when I was teaching kids, one of the games involved the alphabet, and a lot of kids did not know about the alphabet. And it's like, wait, these kids are already like in 5th grade. How do they not know the alphabet? And I learned that apparently the alphabet is not the first thing they learn about when it comes to English. And I'm like, wait, hold on. How do you not start out with the alphabet? They are literally the building blocks to the entire language. And it's like they have very skewed priorities, which sort of like jumbles around like how to even go about learning English in the first place. So now here we are, sort of like kind of trying to play catch up, help these kids play catch up by teaching them the fundamentals first with the alphabet letters, the sounds that they make, and the words that they use to spell them. And at least that's how I learned English, going from kindergarten onwards. You start out with the alphabet and go from there. So it's like, I feel like, in terms of like the systemic the systemic disadvantage that they are already going into can also attribute to just their inability to properly speak English because they are improperly learning English as well, I feel. Um, just because they're not taking like the necessary steps, or like the way that they are taught in school is jumbled around. And from what I can tell from my limited understanding of the Japanese school system, it can be very confusing.
Yeah.
When you're learning Japanese, when you're learning English in that fashion. And so I can see that as leading to problems down the road, in terms of like English fluency. So I feel like that also plays a factor in terms of like just how uh, um, flawed the system itself is.
So, okay, so this brings me to the next question that I would like to ask you. So, if you guys were in charge of the English education system in Japan, for like let's just say a day or something, or a year, how would you change the system? What was the first thing that you would change, or I don't know, you flip it over, or what you said? What is the issue yet that you can see that you both are a full-blooded Mexican? And then the second language, I speak for, I don't know, I don't want to, 3-4 languages, let's say. And we are all, what is it, learning the second languages or third. So how would you change the system to make it better for Japanese people? Yep.
Like, I think a suggestion I would have is to like I like the idea of always dedicating time to English. I like the idea that like even as far as early as elementary school that there is time dedicated to English because on paper it's a very valuable skill to have. I think conversations should definitely play a large role in English education. I feel like giving the kids the chance to speak is very important. And honestly, I think that this would be better handled if the entire English lesson was taught by someone who is fluent in both Japanese and English in order to teach them. Because like whenever I took a foreign language class, the teacher themselves would always be someone who is also fluent in both languages and would have the perspective of this is how an English person would understand this, and this is how this person of this other language can understand it. And so by having someone who has the perspective of both cultures, both languages, I think would be extremely beneficial for the students. Now, of course, ALT's teachers, unfortunately, in most cases, are not fluent in Japanese. So this would mean kind of like essentially doing away with that program altogether, unless you completely reformat it, you turn it upside down, and make it so that it provides career opportunities for English and for fluent English/Japanese bilingual speakers.
Yeah. As I understand it, ALTs are basically speaking English and homeroom teacher. What they call it, homeroom teacher?
Yeah, the homeroom teacher.
Yeah, homeroom teacher speaks Japanese.
They're still the ones leading the lesson, I believe.
Even if you look at it as a budget wise or money wise, I think it would be wiser to have a teacher who speaks both languages than hire another teacher to translate for a student what an English speaker.
Right. So rather than having like a complicated game of telephone.
Yeah, this actually adds more. I think adds more stress and I don't know complexity to the teaching as well. Because as a teacher, I think when you teach as an educator or teacher, you have to bond with your students and you create that connection with your students, and students trust you and they believe you and they want to learn from you. Adding another element in the classroom that is probably temporary or stays 1 or 2 years and then change again. One other guy comes. In Japanese school, I think the teachers stay with students for a few years and they create this bond and connection. So I think it's even budget-wise looking at it as just, for me, sorry, I have to say this, I think it's just waste of resources.
Unless the teachers themselves, the homeroom teachers themselves are fluent in English.
I think at university level, they have, as we all know, JD and Andres, maybe you know some of the teachers we know at Gifu University. I don't want to say their names. They are actually one British teacher who is very good at Japanese, and there is a Japanese teacher who is perfect at English as well. And I can see the results of that classroom or students coming out of those classes, having these teachers as the main teachers are just brilliant and really good, right? I think JD knows most what I'm talking about and the quality of education in that school compared to some other schools that they only have one teacher or they have two teachers, one translating, one is the main homeroom teacher. I think I would like to hear JD's thoughts on this because he worked in different places.
Yeah, I think it's overall I was surprised of how similar our ideas would be. I thought they would be much more different. But yeah, I'm a little bit on the pessimistic side when it comes to like Japanese in Japan. I certainly don't mind if they want to get good at English. Like I don't. It doesn't, like, they can do whatever they want, right? But I think with the current system right now, they should just scrap it at public schools. That's kind of what we're all saying, right? They just get rid of it altogether, and then they can focus on something else like IT. Like they can put some IT classes in there instead. And then if they want to learn, then, the Eikaiwas would actually serve a stronger role here. Well, they'd have to completely remake those too, right? Because they'd have to like teach at the very least, train the teachers who are already there to be able to properly teach English, or they would rely more on that. Slash, as we've been saying, we got to revamp the entire system and then have all the instruction in English. That's like what Europe does, right? And it obviously works there. So that's what they did with. I'm also speaking from experience. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. My first language was actually Spanish. I didn't know any English at up to age like 5. I remember my first day of kindergarten like it was yesterday, which is very weird. But I remember the American teacher coming up to me. Like I'd never seen, like I wasn't used to seeing like Americans being in a Mexican American community. And they were asking me in English what the color of my jacket was, and I didn't know what was going on. And I looked at my mom, and my mom told me in Spanish. She said in Spanish, "They're asking you what the color of your jacket is." And then I responded in Spanish, and then my mom gave me the English, right? So the instruction, of course, was in almost entirely in English. So within 2 years or so, I could speak English. I couldn't. I mean, I had some trouble with the reading part, which now I don't. But like, I could speak English within a year. It was actually more like a year and a half. I was already speaking like basically fluent English. And I think Japanese people can do the same thing. So I think they can just know nothing but Japanese, and as soon as they hit it doesn't have to be kindergarten, but when they hit elementary school, because you know how they start kindergarten early, they start like they do years 3, 4, and 5 years old. They do the kindergarten, and then they go to elementary school. I think from elementary school, just have the instruction in English, but I don't know. I don't know if this is possible. I think this would be a solution, right? As we've all been, but I think it would absolutely solve the problem. But I don't know if they would be willing to do any of that, and I would guess not, especially not anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very difficult for 30 foreigners to decide for education system in Japan to change, or teaching English languages school changes because of 30 foreigners talking on YouTube about but but I think definitely there is a loophole. There is a problem this English education system. That's why it's not working, because in Europe people learn 3-4 different languages, and they learn it properly. They can't speak it. When you hang out with when I hang out with some of my European friends, and suddenly they switch to Italian, and then they go talk to another guy in Spanish, then talk to another guy in French. I was like, what is going on here, right, bro? Yeah, languages you guys speak, and they speak it fluently, And when you look at them and say, okay, what's the difference between these people and people in Japan or Asia? We are the same human beings, right? We have the same brain. But definitely something is wrong, and that's probably education system or the language education system in those countries or Asian countries. I'm not just talking about Japan, and I think most of Asian countries, they have the same issues. I mean, people in Philippines, they speak English, for example, or some other Asian countries, but most of the Asian countries don't speak proper English, right? But look back, and when you come to the middle of Europe, you see all European countries, most of them, I'm not saying all of them, most of them speak at least English, okay?
I was going to say, that is the interesting part about Europe. It's like you got more people willing to learn each other's languages, whereas, in Asia, nobody speaks each other's languages. So instead, they're all united by English. They all use English to communicate with each other. You just don't see people in Japan learning Chinese or Cantonese or Tagalog or Thai or anything like that.
The Korean.
Or Korean, yeah.
JD wanted to say something, I think.
No,
I thought you want to say something. I have interrupted you, no?
Oh, I might have forgotten.
No, it's okay. I think I should say this one to be fair a little bit here, because in Europe, most of the languages are borrowed a lot of words and grammar from each other. So it's much easier to learn the languages. I should say that, like people in Switzerland, for example, or people in Netherlands, they live near France, for example, and it's easier for them, to, and it's a land, it's all lands connected, right? It's not like island like Japan. So it's easier for them to have this mobility to move around and use the language that they learn. Like they can go in the morning to France and practice France and come back at night, right? So it's much easier for people to go to Germany, basically from Denmark, for example. You can go to Germany, practice your German, and come back, right, in the evening. So I think I want to be fair here that it's okay not to speak the second language, but also I think it's not okay not to speak it. You need to at least learn the second language, either English or another language, just for the sake of your brain to, I don't know, the neurons be happy about it, but
Yeah,
but
so that you can expand,
yeah.
kind of broaden your mind.
Yeah, but also I think I see that potential that human beings have, and they can actually learn the language. And to be honest, I don't think people in Germany need to learn France. They just learn it because they want to communicate with the rest of people in Europe, maybe. Or the French people don't need to speak English or German, but they do because they learned it at school and they stick to it, right? Like I think in the Scandinavia, the English 90% of people speak perfect English. Okay, and they learn it from same as the Japanese. They learn it from kindergarten. They start teaching them from kindergarten, and they stick with it. Like I asked some of my friends in Europe, why you guys are so good at English? He said, we just like it, and we watch a lot of TV programs, American TV programs, TV shows also. So most of our TV programs or are either YouTube or TV programs are in English. So, and we already speak our native language anyway. So we focus more on the other language we want to learn, and we just watch those programs in the language we want to. That's it. I don't know. That's so interesting to see that people in other side of the planet, it's a half, the middle of the planet, they can learn multiple languages easily.
Mhm.
And I think something's wrong here. I can see that there is something definitely wrong here, right? And
Right.
that's what I'm
Because when
trying to find. Sorry, keep going.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna say, yeah, it's like there's definitely a system that Europe has that I feel like the rest of the world could definitely benefit from.
Yeah. Mhm.
It's hard to say if it's like just merely a cultural thing or not. Just the being surrounded by so many countries speak so many different languages. Because meanwhile, you've got like U.S. and Canada, which primarily both speak English. We know, yes, Canada does have a French side. There's Mexico, so Spanish is definitely the one of the biggest languages out there in the U.S. And you got Latin America, which majority of Latin America is all. There are many countries, but they all speak with one language essentially. Um, I would say Europe is definitely like certain. I'm not sure how unique of a situation Europe is, in that you have a bunch of smaller countries who are able to get along with each other enough to want to learn each other's languages.
Mhm.
Maybe politics plays a huge part of it. Maybe history,
Yeah.
past history, historical relationships also play a big part. The answer could be very, very complicated for why it works for Europe, but not for Asia. But it's certainly a very interesting topic to think about.
Yeah, and I think we are not in a position to find the problem and solve it as well. We're just discussing to see from our point of view what could be the issue and just address it here. This is how we see the issue, right? This is how we think uh, it could be solved, for example.
Yeah, it would be a really interesting issue to even try to tackle in the future should they allow us to try. I think there's other ways we can help Japan.
Just us three, no one else.
But I'm
us
thinking
three
about-
are in charge of saving Asia. Just
Yeah,
all of Asia.
Yeah, I'm thinking about no, it does when you put it that way. It is it does.
It's morphin' time.
Funny. Yeah, but I was just thinking like, and no, it's because the reason why I bring it up like this is because we're planning on starting companies in Japan, and the objectives would be to
save Asia.
yes to help to save whoa, like sky's the limit. I don't mind trying to do that. I don't mind going for that either, but yeah, it's basically to really try to help and solve issues help Japan and solve issues there. There's quite a few, and I think that we can assist with that. If I'm ever tasked or we are tasked with we watched your guys' podcast, like let's say 10 years in the future. We came across this podcast, and like you guys were, we really liked what you guys were saying, and it sounds like you guys actually do care about the people here, and we'd like, well, we've done this much with your current company. What do you think about trying to assist in the English education sector? I'd like to give it I would like to give it a shot. But for now, I learned Japanese, and I don't really, I honestly, like I said earlier, I'm a bit pessimistic about the English education and them learning English in particular. It's definitely not something that I'm expecting of them. But trying, if people are serious and are on board with potentially solving that problem, oh yeah, like I'd like to be a part of that for sure.
Great. How about you, Anders?
In terms of what?
In the future, if let's say government watches our podcast and say, "Oh, these guys have a point, and seems they have already a lot of experience living in Japan, and we can ask them for help to just an third eye, what they call it, second thought, come and check out our education system. We're trying to do it from scratch again. We need your guys to give comments on it or help us with restructuring the education system or English education system at least."
I mean, hey, I'm always down for a challenge. And like I said, failure is the best way to learn and improve. So it's like, I cannot guarantee that my ideas will work or are even good, but at least it's something to set a foundation and to get the ball rolling. You know, even if it doesn't succeed the first, second, third, or fourth time, at least it's something that I feel like each step of the process would get us closer to our goal.
I think it's not actually very difficult to solve this problem because there are a lot of successful countries doing this already. So for us, it's just doing a little bit of research. For example, in Europe, they actually look at Finland, how the education system works in Finland, and they try to apply it in their education system, right? So yeah, that's not very difficult to actually solve this problem. You just have to want to change and ask for help or do some proper research and hire the right people to do the job. I don't think this is a very big issue to solve, to be honest. We have already a lot of good examples out there, the working systems, right? You just have to adopt, borrow it, or learn from it. That's it.
Yeah, learn from the best.
Yes, learn from the best.
That's exactly what sorry to cut you off. I think that everything Messi's saying is correct. I think once people start to basically see themselves being able to solve a problem, that's when the problem solving starts to happen. The wheels go into motion. But just this short, small joke, like, I don't know if it's a joke, but I imagine that I wanted to say this earlier, but you know how Andres is usually like working on he's doing his own thing and all that. I don't know where I get this like stereotype impression that I feel like the Green Ranger in Power Rangers is like always more busy than the other Rangers for some reason, and they have to like call upon him. Like I just like like
he's always off doing his own thing.
right. He's never with the group, right? So I was like,
right.
Andres would be like the Green Ranger that we would have to summon into Japan. Hey, Andres, they actually watched our video. They actually watched our videos. They're actually asking us to try to do this. So like, do you want?
All right, guys, I'm on my way.
Yeah. No, no, but it's just the Power Rangers parody video, I guess. Like when he's like randomly at school, nobody else is. And he's like, all right, I'm on.
Oh, we gotta watch that. Now I gotta watch that video again.
No, that I can't get enough. That I watched 100 times. I won't get bored of it.
All right, I would like to sum up today's. It seems you guys don't want to leave today. That's a good sign. But I would like to sum up today's discussion. I would like to hear a good story of the time that you were teaching or working at Eikaiwas or English schools. If you have any particular thing you want to talk about, or something interesting, or a good memory, or a good student that you had good memory with, or something like that.
Yeah, I remember. So I had this student of mine who I could tell that she was someone who was a bit on the nerdy geek side, and that she could tell that I was very much so a proud geek. I love myself, my movies, superheroes, comic books, cartoons. I've never been ashamed of my hobbies, and I often would share with her stories of going to conventions, meeting certain actors, just interacting with other fans of the stuff that I like. And ultimately, it inspired her to go to the very first Tokyo Comic Con. And I remember she told me that she got tickets for Tokyo Comic Con and that she wanted to meet Jeremy Renner, who played Hawkeye from the Avengers. And she was like, "Oh, what do I say to him? Like, what should I say?" And I suggested that she would say, like, "Oh, say thank you very much for coming to Japan. I'm a big fan of your work. It's a pleasure meeting you." And even though she couldn't remember all of it, she was able to speak a little, just enough to where she just had that interaction. She took a photo with him. She met him, and it was an experience that she would never forget. And part of me felt like I had a hand in that somehow, in that, just learning to embrace your, the things that you love, the things that bring you joy in life, and just, to go out there and just go out in pursuit of new experiences. And for her, that was, going to Tokyo Comic Con and meeting a big Hollywood actor for the very first time. She had never experienced anything like that. And I was really proud of her for going out and doing that. So it's like being able to like I said, mentioned from the very beginning, just motivating my students to, trying out new experiences, going out and new places, new faces, new people, all this kind of new memories, all this kind of stuff. It's like it warmed my heart knowing that, I had somewhat of a hand in that. And I felt like it's just one out of many similar experiences that I've had in terms of leaving such an impact on my students.
Yeah, very nice. How about you, JD?
I think to add to that, on this, just that I think that so like Hawkeye, he's people really like those movies. They really like his character, and on this, like, is like linked to this character. I feel even like the actor / character in a way, because he's linked through his student who was able to meet the actor who played this character. That's the way I see that situation. So I think that's really cool. When it comes to myself, I think it's definitely going to be less about the actual job I was doing, which it's going to be more about everything, not just the job, everything I was doing there. So the English teaching experience reminds me of just the quiet life in Gifu, like just on the way to work, bicycling on the way to work, bicycling home at night, where you can breathe in the fresh air of Gifu, look at the stars, look at the sky, riding around
Listen to the
together.
frogs.
Listen to the frogs. I was going to say that. Listen to the bugs. Listen to the frogs. Just riding around on together. Sometimes we'd hang out together, or actually not sometimes, all the time. And just being in that area that we were at, and just I always strongly associate Gifu with. I do associate it with, even though I feel like I didn't fit the career. With the Eikaiwa and the ALT life, it's all connected for me. So yeah, I just all that is amazing. Just like when we go to Milera, which it looks like the Totoro movie. Everything is green, the rice fields.
Yeah.
It was like a really awesome. I'm really happy that I got to do that job, because I was able to get all that as well. So I was able to get everything, and it was a good long.
You took us back, man. You took us back.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah.
Remember the times we had where you and I would finish late, or anytime any of us would finish late, we'd just go out for dinner together at like Sukiya or Katsuya.
Yeah. Now all the food. Yeah. It for some reason tasted better in Gifu. Yes.
Actually,
especially everywhere. But yeah, especially at night. And Tsukiya and those shops that Andres mentioned, those are basically chains everywhere. But the Nakao in Gifu tasted the best to me.
It was the best. I've tried it everywhere. Nakao was the best in Gifu.
In Gifu, right?
I tell you, I don't know why, but it's the best in Gifu.
I feel like the ingredients are like fresher there or something. It has
It's
to
the
be.
air, man. It's the air.
The air or something, right? It's so fresh.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the best, I think.
And masa being in the middle was also great. I never got
really
tired.
nice community hub.
Yeah, people would say like, "Oh, there's nothing to do in Gifu," which there's some truth to it. But I always felt like entertained, and if I didn't even we all, I think, eventually moved to Tokyo at some point, or maybe
no, not me.
He stayed the whole time, but
yeah, I'm not.
I always. No. I mean, I always missed Gifu. I was like, if I even thought this, if I never had, and I think when I first moved, I would tell people this all the time. If I didn't have to move and could work off my laptop or something, I would have stayed in that area.
I mean, definitely. That was the thing. It's like everyone eventually left Gifu. All of our friends, moved on to bigger and better places.
Yeah.
And I feel like I might have been the last one of our friend group there. So it was at that point where I realized, yep, it's my time. It's like I gotta go as well now.
Yeah, comparing to Tokyo, it was very peaceful, and we knew people there. Like you go to Masa Nijuichi, you could always see people from Eikaiwa or students. So for me, I think the happy memory or good memories that I have is one thing that. For me, when I was planning to leave, go to Tokyo, little kids and adults, all of them wrote me cards and say thank you and imamade arigatou gozaimashita. Even little kids drew me some pictures, and we had. I mean, look, as an educator, as a teacher, we only need something back from students, and that's their appreciation or their success. Of towards what we have been doing for them, right? We want them to achieve what they want, and also I think a little bit of appreciation is always good to add to it, because and it makes educators very, very happy when students do that, right? So for me, they actually made me cry when I saw how much they cared about me and how much they missed me, and some of the kids tried to hug me and cry, and that was the best memory I have after before I left Eikaiwa or Gifu. Of course, as you said, eating together. I remember eating with JD at Sukiya. Oh my god, that puts like a lot of what do you call it, Tabasco.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was
It was Tabasco sauce. Yeah.
It was gyudon, and the topping with cheese.
Cheese gyudon.
Cheese gyudon.
Yeah.
Plus Tabasco. Oh, that was the best. We went there all the time after teaching or hanging out. Oh, that was our favorite food. Or gyudon and karaage at Nakao. That was the best too.
I will say it is certainly interesting because, like, when we were kids growing up, we've had our favorite teachers that you'd always be heartbroken at the end of the school year to say goodbye to these teachers we've come to look up to as role models. So it's certainly like a very surreal thing to think about when now we have been on the opposite end as teachers saying goodbye to our students. And it's always been like a very emotional time for me to, whenever it came to saying goodbye to my students, even before I quit my job, for one reason or another, various students will leave either because, let's say they're kids who are about to enter middle school. So their parents want them to prioritize their studies over English, over Eikaiwa, or adults who quit because work is getting busy, their work schedule is getting busier, so they had to sacrifice their time at the school, at our classes, or for one reason or another, many students leave, and it's always, it's sort of like I can finally understand what it's like for my teachers whenever they had to say goodbye to any students that they have grown attached to. And yeah, especially when it came to saying goodbye to my students at the very end was certainly incredibly emotional. Just the various amounts of gifts that I received, as words can't describe the feeling that it that came with that whole period of my life. Sorry, just gotta take this phone call.
All right, take it easy. And how about you, JD? Did you have any good experience like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if necessarily it was I don't remember it being too good of I think it was kind of a little bit messy when I left more because the like the owner at the time, she really 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 didn't want me to leave. I remember my students some of them being very upset that I was leaving. Like they were I had, because at the time, the way it happened was I got a lot of students to join, like during the last 2 weeks, right? And I didn't tell them I was leaving until like one class before. So I had like 3, 4, 5. Actually, it was a little bit more. I had a couple lessons with them, and then they liked my lessons. That's why they joined. And so many of them, I didn't even expect it because remember at the time, I didn't even think I was very good at my job, right? So, but that's when I really started to teach like the linking stuff. So we got not necessarily young kids are gonna care about that, right? But I did get a bunch of adult students who really cared about that, and they were like, "Wow, nobody's ever taught me that." Those are the things we learned from the class at Gifu University, and I just remember them, like everyone being really upset and everyone actually saying like, "I will quit here. I would actually quit and go with you." No, almost all a large amount of the students were saying things like that, and I had to tell them not to do that because I thought it was a lot of people told me you should have just taken all the students and you should have you could have charged them what you wanted. You would have been and it was just something that I didn't feel like doing. I didn't think it was good to do. It was a smaller business. I guess various other reasons. So maybe not the most positive thing to end on for me, but that's kind of it was a kind of a tough period for me, like the Eikaiwa portion of it. Unfortunately, that's how it ended up ending. But yeah, I mean, to be a little bit more positive, I did have students who were like, "Oh, we don't." Well, it was mostly that. It was mostly like, "We're gonna quit here and go with you," kind of thing. And I was like, "No, that's not good." Like I'm not gonna take students from this person. So I just refused those kind like their offers or whatever to
Mhm.
So that's kind of how it ended for me. Wish it was a bit more cheerful, but yeah.
We all had our experiences and challenges. Maybe we had the students from age of 2 to up to 70 something. It's not that easy to deal with different type of people, kids, adults, elementary schools. It's not an easy job, to be honest, but we make it sound like it's an easy job, but it wasn't. Actually, it was very hard, to be honest, to deal with the students and teaching preparations and all of those. I found it interesting and fun, but also very difficult and challenging because you have to make the kids happy when they go back home, right? You don't want to upset them. You don't want to, make them sad. You want them to enjoy in your class as well. So you have to, be very careful how to deal with the situations. I think Andres needs to leave. Do you have anything else to say before?
I wish I could have stayed longer, but I definitely want to say, like, yeah, was absolute. Like, teaching English was absolutely the adventure of a lifetime for me. I would highly recommend anyone who wants to go to Japan and starts living there, working there. Highly recommend it for anyone who wants to jump at the chance for such an experience. Um, you know, cannot guarantee what kind of students that you'll have. There's always going to be challenges depending on how motivated they are and what exactly they're looking for out of your lessons. But like I said, I as on the whole, I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was an incredibly important time in my life. It was something that has hugely benefited me long after I've left Japan. It's an experience that continues to educate me and has helped about Japan, its people, and the world. It's allowed me to understand what Japanese life is like for just by interacting with so many different people from all walks of life from that country. It's really given me a better understanding of that part of the world, and I really hope that I was able to help my students as much as they have helped me personally. And so, yeah, highly recommend it. And for anyone there, I hope that your experience will be just as fulfilling as it was for me.
Great. Thank you, Andres. And I hope we have you next time in our channel as well and talk more about your experiences living in Japan and working in Japan, right? Thank you again for joining us today, Andres. And I think JD and I will finish up this episode. And I hope you have a good day. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Take care. So, JD, you have anything else to add, or we can finish it up today?
Yeah, I feel the same way, despite not having as much of a bright experience. I think that the experience was absolutely necessary to help me help me get to this point where I am now, and I would not. I don't need to do it over again. Like I don't need to go and try to change anything about it. I think everything happened the way it should have. So, I think it was overall a very good, very, very, very good experience. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yep, I think so too. And I don't know. Let's see what happens in the future. I hope many people would like to try to go to Japan and maybe work in Japan. And I mean, we had a good time also because we followed the rules and respected them again. And I really respected my students, and I loved them when they appreciated my effort and they noticed that I'm doing my best for them. And I was happy to see they are learning and also supporting me whenever I need it. So I think anybody who wants to try what we did or go to Japan and become an English teacher, or as a student, we will do it as a part-time job. Just do your best, respect the kids, respect the adults and students, and respect your boss, and you will have a great time, to be honest. Yeah. I don't know. I think we're done with today's episode. And I have nothing else to add. If you have nothing else to add here, we can end it up here. And we can continue the next episode and maybe next week.
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah.